Hey there guys, today we're taking a look at Far Cry 6 running on the AMD Ryzen 5 5600H running on the Beelink SER5 mini PC. Now I've taken a look at the game on here before, but that was really just running the built-in benchmark for a comparison video to the other version of this mini PC. After finally sitting down and playing it for a while, I actually ended up finding that there were specific problems with the game right now. Now it's not something completely related to the mini PC itself, it's not really a problem with the hardware as much as it is the software. You're looking at the game right now running with the lowest in-game graphics settings and the render resolution set to 60%. But the game has a problem where with the current drivers, which are the 22.11.2 drivers, you will actually end up having crashes. Now how frequently they happen is really just going to depend. I managed to actually play for around 30 minutes before it crashed, but once it happened, it really just ended up going to the desktop. But every time I tried to play the game after that, it would crash within 10 to 15 minutes. With the quickest time that it actually happened being within just 2 minutes of the game actually launching. Now once I actually reverted to the previous major drivers, which were the 22.5.1 drivers, the performance actually ended up being slightly regressed, but there was no more crashing happening. And the regression was really just 1 to 2 FPS. It wasn't substantial, but the fact that I could actually play the game consistently now was a pretty big deal. I actually sat there and played the game for about an hour after this, and it didn't really run into any more issues, and it was pretty much the longest that I was actually able to play the game without any crashes whatsoever. So it really seems like the performance issues are currently with the most recent drivers. Who knows if any updated drivers are actually going to improve this, but I think this goes to show that if you're running into any issues with a particular game, try swapping around drivers. That might actually end up being the issue. A lot of the times, hardware is not really failing. It either works or it doesn't. If you're having inconsistent situations like this in a game, it more than likely will end up being a software problem, and there might actually be a solution out there for it. So it's something to keep in mind. Now overall, the performance that we're getting right now and what you're looking at right now is no longer the render resolution set to 60, but instead we're using dynamic resolution scaling with a target FPS of 60, and that really seems to produce the best image quality to performance. Now the game does support FSR, but FSR really ends up having performance overhead that requires you to use the performance preset, and it looks really bad at the 1080p resolution, and you get a lot of shimmering and just fuzziness around the edges of pretty much everything. So especially in motion, it really looks terrible. So you're better off just using the dynamic resolution scaling. Now you're going to be looking at around closer to a 40 FPS average, but our 1% lows are comfortably above 30, which means that you do get a playable experience here. It's just not going to be a high refresh rate one, but it is actually doable, and you can actually play the game without having to have it look like an absolute mess. But do keep in mind that if you are looking to play this on this specific system, and I would imagine in pretty much any AMD system right now, you might need to revert your drivers to an older version. Now I will be taking a look at this game running on the 5500U and the 5560U just to verify if it's just something specific to this particular chip and these drivers, or if it's more universal. But as of right now, I have only tested it on this specific chip, but it was giving me issues with the newest drivers. Thankfully, you can just go onto AMD's website and download the previous drivers, and the game should work perfectly fine. So if you're looking to play through the game, you can just end up using those drivers, and once you're done with those, you can of course update to the most recent drivers, and more than likely have a good experience with pretty much every game. This really is more of an anomaly. I haven't really found any other game so far that has given me issues with these particular drivers, but obviously this is the whole point of doing these test videos and actually playing the games, not just running the built-in benchmarks. Built-in benchmarks are great for doing comparisons between hardware, but if I was just sitting here only showing you the benchmarks, you wouldn't really actually know how the game would be performing. After actually sitting down and playing the game, we can actually see that there are issues, because the benchmark would run perfectly fine on the newest drivers. You pretty much would actually have to sit there and play the game to actually understand that there were problems. So always keep that in mind when you're looking at any videos related to pretty much any hardware out there. If you're only looking at built-in benchmarks, they might not be painting the full image for you. But just to make things easier for you guys, I am linking down below directly to the driver that I use that actually got the game working perfectly fine for me, if you're actually looking to play this game on here, because it actually does end up playing, and by the time that I reverted the drivers, I was actually having a really good time playing on here. Like I said, the performance isn't incredible, but it's good enough, and since we're not relying on FSR, it isn't a complete completely fuzzy, shimmering mess. But anyways, I hope you guys found this video useful. If you did, be sure to subscribe. There is, of course, a link down below to this specific mini PC if you're interested in grabbing one. I am a huge fan of it. The 5600H really is one of my favorite APUs that AMD has released, just because of the crazy efficiency and the level of performance you can actually get out of this. And for the price point, you're going to struggle to find a mini PC that gives you this level of performance. Now, of course, there are higher tier ones, but you're usually looking to spend around $200 to $300 more to get any meaningful performance uplift past this. But anyways, I will catch you guys in the next one.